This video will walk you through how to stitch up the triangle. The first place we'll start with are the trousers. The trousers are created using a chain stitch. You'll work in the black and the white. I find it easiest to fill in all the white stripes first. You'll work creating a run of chain stitches. Each of these stripes should be 2 rows of chain stitch side by side. Remember, there are separate videos on the how-to section showing you how to do the chain stitch. Here I use the link method, but you may find you prefer the loop method. I think it's worth testing out both. So as you can see there, I finished all the white stripes. Now I'm going on to fill in the black ones. Now this isn't the easiest thing to see on video because it's against the black background. But one of the great things about the fabric being printed is that it means that if you have any gaps between your chains, you really won't particularly notice them because the background colour will fill in those gaps. So again, I'll now just fill in this section using 2 rows of chain stitches. Again, I'm working using a link method here. So, continue in that way, filling in both the rows of the chain stitch. And then you will have finished the trousers. Once they're done, we move on to doing the shoes. And the shoes are created using a satin stitch. Again, there's a separate video showing you this, but simply you're just working from top to bottom, filling out the area using the dark green thread. I think it's quite nice to be quite generous with this and fill the threads in quite close to each other, so the shoes feel kind of textured and full. Once you've entirely filled them out, I think it's nice to add a row of running stitch along the bottom. This creates the impression of the soles of the shoes. I'll show you a close-up so you can see exactly what I'm doing here. So you see I'm just creating a series of short stitches along the bottom, finishing off the shoes. So once that's finished, we'll move on to the sash. And whilst the sash looks quite complicated, it's simple when you break it down into individual components. So we start with the light pink and filling out these triangles, just using a satin stitch. Don't worry too much about how neat these look when you've just done these first triangles, because it will all get neater when you add in the dark pink and then the gold edging. I actually find it easiest to work from the central stitch of each triangle and then work outwards. I would work down and fill in all the light pink first before moving on to the dark pink. As you can see now, I've got all the light pink filled in, and now I'm starting on the dark pink. Here you see specifically how I start from the central part of the triangle and then put in the stitches on either side. And so I'll continue in this manner and fill out dark pink the whole way down the sash and the belt. So once all those triangles are filled in, then I take the gold thread and start to add these diagonal stripes across. Gold thread can always be a bit of a pain to work with because it has a tendency to snag, so just have some patience when you're doing this bit. And all I'm going to do is add individual long gold stitches on either side of the triangles. Once you've filled in all that gold going side to side, then we'll look to add in the border. And the border, we take the dark pink and we just do a simple running stitch. So again, there is a separate video showing you the running stitch, but effectively it's just made up of a series of short stitches. We'll work the whole way around the edge of the sash and just finishing it all off nicely. You can see a close-up here of the running stitch, showing you exactly what to do. So one detailed area is when you get to the bottom of the sash, there's these little lines coming out. And so I just add those in individual stitches. Don't worry too much about how precisely you position these on top of what's printed on the fabric. You won't be able to see afterwards. So once that's finished, then I'm going to move on to his jumper. And all we are doing here is adding an edge around the jumper in French knots. Now there's a separate video showing you how to do French knots. If you've never done them before and you may be a little bit intimidated by them, I'd recommend just getting a scrap piece of fabric you have, putting it in the hoop and then having a go using a bit of the thread to create a few. But once you get the hang of it, you'll start to understand exactly how to do them Don't worry about how neat each individual knot is, because really it's about creating a nice volume edge through the jumper, and you don't really notice each individual French knot once the whole area is filled. So I'll show you now on the video in a bit more detail the triangle and his baton. So you can stitch these in various ways. I'll just show you the way I stitch it. I just use a few long stitches to create the edges of the triangle. But as these are quite long, and therefore if you're going to use it as a hanging decoration or something, you may find that they could snag. I add a couple of little short sideways stitches in, as I'm doing here, just to hold it in place. It also just creates quite a nice effect. I take exactly the same approach as this when doing his baton, doing a few long stitches and then a couple of nice short side to side. Similarly, I'll show you how I do the whole of his crown. Again, I'm just using straight stitches here to create the bottom and then to create triangles at the top. You can stitch this however you see fit or however you enjoy. Don't worry about doing it exactly the way I have. So to do the top, I add in a few long stitches to create these triangle shapes. And then for the circle, I'll add a French knot at the top of each. You may find it easiest to finish off the thread after you've done this stage, and then do the French knots on separate pieces of thread. Take your time over this bit. I've left this till the end as it's one of the harder pieces to do. So you'll notice that his hair has not been filled in on the printed pattern. And that's so you can use your creativity to kind of create any hairstyle you'd like. I choose to fill in his hair using French knots again. Now I'm just going to work around filling out the whole area to create a big hairstyle. We're almost there now. The final finishing touches, I like to add an outline around his hands and around his face. Just nice to define this area. I'm just using a running stitch here to add this edging. And then the final touch is to put in his eye. Just using a couple of stitches in the white thread. And then you're finished. And that's your triangle there, all stitched up. Do get in touch if you have any other questions.